Hello everyone and welcome in online learning. Today we are going to study one of the lessons from supplementary book of CBSE class 10 and the name of lesson is Triumph of Surgery. The lesson Triumph of Surgery in the form of story is written by the narrator Dr. James Herriot. Introduction to this lesson is tricky. A small dog is pampered, given too much love and overfed, given too much food to eat by his rich mistress, owner. He falls seriously ill and his mistress consults a veterinary surgeon. Does he perform an operation? Does the dog recover? It will be seen in a course of our story. This story is about Tricky, a dog who is the pet of a rich lady named Mrs. Humphrey. She loves her dog very much and is unable to refuse him anything he wants. Tricky is fond of eating cream cakes, chocolates. So one day, when Mrs. Humphrey is out with the dog Tricky for a walk, the narrator sees them and stops to talk. Then we have good story about the dog and the lady. The present story is written and presented by us, that is Dr. James Alfred Herriot. He was born on 3rd October 1916 and he died on 23 February 1995. He was known by the pen names James Herriot. Was a British veterinary surgeon and writer who used his many years of experiences as a veterinary surgeon to write a series of books, each consisting of stories about animals and their owners. He is the best known for these semi-autobiographical works, beginning with If Only They Could Talk in 1970, which spawned a series of movies and television series. In this lesson, we will come across some difficult words and glossary. It will be seen as below. Bloated, excessive in size or amount, in other words, fat. Sausage, an item of food made of fried meat, especially of the pig. Bloodshot, of the eyes, inflamed or tinged with blood, typically as a result of tiredness. Rheumy, watery. To hasten, to hurry, listless, lacking energy or enthusiasm. Malnutrition, lack of proper nutrition. Cod liver oil pressed from the liver of cod. Relent, become less severe or intense. Lumbago, pain in the muscles and joints of the lower back. So these were some difficult words. Now let's see the summary. This story has been written by Dr. James Herriot. The subject of this story is a pet dog which is spoiled, damaged by its owner due to the love. The owner indulged her dog so much with the food and other comforts that the dog has become overweight and cannot even walk properly. Finally, the dog has been taken to a veterinary doctor who treats the dog without using a single medicine in his surgery, that is a observatory lab. The dog is left with all other dogs so that it can play and get the much needed physical exercise. After a period of enough physical activities, the dog loses much of its fats and become hale, thin, and hearty. Apparently, this is a simple story with a simple subject, but if we try to read between the words, the story has much significance for our life as well. You will see many kids who are overweight and spoiled because their parents just try to meet every demand of the kid. The kid develops into a coach potato, which is not good for his entire life. So, with the help of few textbook images, I'll try to just give the glimpse of the lesson. The lady with a rope tied to the neck of the dog is the mistress, Mrs. Humphrey, and the dogs in front of the man is Dr. James Harriet. He is a veterinary doctor who treats the dog. See, the Dr. James Harriet doesn't give a single medicine to treat the dog in his surgery observatory lab. Only he provides the sufficient and enough physical activities, exercise to feel hungry and lose the fats. And this is the final concluding part of the story where the lady happened to express her feeling as a triumph of surgery, which could be a title because it is an emotional reunion of the pet dog, Tricky, and the master, the lady, Mistress Humphrey. So, key points from the lessons to be learnt. Tricky, a small cute dog, is over pampered by his rich mistress, Mrs. Humphrey. In her love, she overfed him with the cream cakes, chocolates, Horlicks, etc. in between meals. Tricky, never been known to refuse the food, gets overweight and lethargic, lazy, and looked like a bloated sausage, swollen meat. Now he refused to eat, had bouts of vomiting, and was restless without enthusiasm. Mr. James Harriet, the tactful veterinary doctor and the narrator of the story, strictly told the dog to be hospitalized for about 15 days. That was the only way to save the greedy dog from getting seriously ill. Mrs. Humphrey, the owner of the dog, her whole staff was in tears when there was a separation of dog from them. The dog was given only water for 2 days and was kept on a strict diet under the observation. Means 2 days he wasn't given a single particle of food. Gradually he started taking interest in surrounding and ran about the other household dogs at surgery. The veterinary doctor, in his surgery, there were few more dogs with them, with their company. Thus Tricky was left. Thus Tricky removed without any medication, just through the strict diet and plenty of exercise. To Mrs. Humphrey, who sent dozens of eggs, bottles of wine and brandy to convalescing Tricky, the recovery was a triumph of surgery. See, this is the title of the lesson, that is the triumph of surgery, because it was a recovery of dog Tricky. So let's have the story in a deep explanation. See here in the picture there are 3 characters. One of them is dog, and the lady is Mrs. Humphrey, and the dog who is busy in communication is Dr. James Harriet. When the lady was out for morning walk, that time veterinary doctor happened to talk with the lady. James Harriet, veterinary doctor, narrated the story of Tricky, and he explained us how the dog got recovered from his illness of listlessness. Once, when the lady was on walk with her dog, that time the James Harriet in his car saw the lady with the dog. Dog seemed somewhat the listless, and he happened to talk. He saw Tricky one day with his owner, Mrs. Pumphrey. James Harriet was shocked to see the Tricky's appearance. Look how fatty he was. Mrs. Pumphrey quickly explained that she thought Tricky was suffering from malnutrition, so she fed him some malt, cod liver oil, and bowl of Horlicks. See here, when she thought of having some malnutrition for the dog, she additionally supplements food was provided in the form of malt, cod liver oil, and Horlicks to the Tricky. She also confessed that she fed him some cream cakes and chocolates. In addition to that, some cream cakes and chocolates on demand of the dog were provided. James realized the situation was bad. He knew Tricky could never say no to food. The Tricky, with the greediness of food, he was continuously eating, and that's why to leave the Tricky with the mistress James Harriet, it was not good. It was a bad. Having that plan, he discussed that the dog should be taken away from the lady to cure in his surgery. So, however, as he watched Mrs. Pumphrey walk away with the Tricky, he thought it could be a long before he heard from her. Initially, the lady was not agreed, but the lady thought that it will be recovered, but continuous provision of the food developed the fatness of the dog and could not do anything, and it was a very much bad situation for the dog to hold. So, sure enough, the Mrs. Pumphrey in her worry talked to Dr. James Harriet and informed that the dog is very much in need of the medicine and medication. So, Dr. James Harriet assured the dog to be taken for a few days. It seemed Tricky was refusing the food and suffering from bouts of vomiting. Even the vomiting developed for the Tricky, and now it was the matter that the dog should be taken away. He knew that only way to cure Tricky was to get him away from the house into his clinic. Even the doctor thought of a plan that the Tricky should be taken away from his own home to his clinic. Then, when he arrived in the house of Mistress Pumphrey, and that time he discussed that he wanted this Tricky to be taken away for 2 weeks in his clinic. Mrs. Pumphrey was almost fainted at the suggestion provided by the Dr. James Harriet, and she could not accept it properly. Then, after convincing properly, the Dr. James Harriet grabbed hold of Tricky, and James carried him down to his car. And when he put him into the car, and from his review mirror, he saw the entire household standing on the road in tears. Instantly, it was an emotional separation. That's why he instantly put, and without paying more attention, he started his car, and he could see in a mirror of the car the emotional tears of the owner and the servants of the Tricky. And when the Dr. James Harriet reached in his surgery, he left the Tricky with with the company of other dogs. At his clinic, his dogs came rushing to him to welcome the new addition in the form of Tricky. In contrast, just stared at them with dull eyes. But the reaction of the Tricky was really very dull. He was only staring, and it was a disinteresting object for the company of the. For the next 2 days, Tricky was given only water and no food. And next further 2 days, he was only provided the only water, not the food for 2 days and further. On the third day, the narrator fed the Tricky to the dogs playing in the yard. Tricky slowly followed the dogs around as they played. On the third day, in the company of the dogs, he was provided the food at a little distance, and there he had to struggle to get the food. Later the dogs were fed. Tricky sniffed their bowls, licking them casually. But as the dog had a less effort to get his share of the food, he could have a half food to fill the stomach, and then when the entire food was finished, that time he only was licking the bowls of the food of other dogs licking. He thought of having the more food to have. He has to struggle more. The next day, when a bowl was set for him, Tricky joined the other dogs for his meal with a great enthusiasm and rush. And that was the turning point for the Tricky. From then, he made rapid progress in his recovery. He ran around the dogs, fighting them for food and hunting the rats at night with the company of other dogs. And when it was informed to the Mrs. Pumphrey with a joyous mood on hearing that Mrs. Pumphrey started bringing around baskets of eggs. Then they started sending wine. Lunch became a fun affair with glasses of wine before and during the meals. But whatever the food was provided, it was not served to the Tricky, and it was shared by the doctor with his friends. Finally, she sent a bottle of brandy. James and his partner grandly enjoyed this drink at dinner. And this is how the 2 weeks, 15 days, as promised, were completed by the Tricky in his surgery, and the dog was fully recovered. Now it was a time to hand over the dog back to the master, but at the same time, some thought was creeping in the mind of the doctor. Shall I extend the more stay of the dog in his surgery? But he kept his words, and he informed the lady about the recovery of her dog. James was tempted to keep the Tricky permanently if only the fine spirits and the eggs would be received from the lady. So she called her and gave her the good news. Within a minute, Mrs. Pumphrey arrived at the clinic of Dr. James Herriot, and there were a remarkable change in the Tricky now. No longer was he a fat, bloated, swollen animal. Now he was agile, joyous, and well-muscled, and kept up well with the James' other dogs, and he was equivalent with other dogs. James carried the Tricky back to Mrs. Pumphrey's car, and the minute Tricky saw his owner, he jumped out in James' arm and rushed at the Mrs. Pumphrey's lap, and it was a great reunion between the pet and the master. The minute the Tricky was Tricky saw his owner. He jumped out James' arm and rushed at Mrs. Pumphrey's lap. Mrs. Pumphrey, with her tearful eyes, thanked the James, and she believed it was a triumph victory of surgery of Dr. James Harriet. And this is how the lesson ends. This lesson has good message that one should not be given more comforts and more shower of the comforts within which he will only develop the dullness and the listlessness. That's why similarly the children also should not be given more love and pamper. They should be taught the lessons of the livelihood.